Ready to go with our second live shir. Okay, now we do this shir every single day for the last 3 years, but we just went live on Facebook, on YouTube, and various different other around the world. You could now learn in Tzfat, even if you're in New York, even if you're in Sydney, Australia, New Zealand, wherever you are, you can learn in the holy city of Tzfat, because we are in the holy city of Tzfat beginning this year. Okay? It's the beginning of the week, and I want to remind you guys, as well as those who came to last week's shiur, is that we start a new Gemara in the beginning of the week, so if you haven't been part of this shiur in the past, it is a good time to start. Okay? Now, you're going to start? Yalla. What's that? The sheets are on their way, and Bezrat Hashem, they will be here momentarily, and we're going to just have to go in the middle of the shir for that. Okay? Now, some people might be wondering why we call this intellectual spirituality when we're learning the Talmud. So I think it is important to give a bit of a brief understanding of what Talmud is. I know some of you guys may have heard this from me before, but it is very good to reiterate it, to repeat it, so that we can understand what is the Talmud. Okay? Now, first of all, many of you have been to my class explaining how the Talmud came about, the history, how it came from the oral code that was taught by Moses during the time the Jews were in the desert, right? Makes sense? You're not sure? Pretty sure about it. Can I know? Now, Judaism is very unique in the Abrahamic religions in the fact that, unlike many Abrahamic religions, that every scripture is somewhat equal, right? So if Moses says something, or if Isaiah says something, or if Jeremiah says something, or for those who believe in other prophets, if the other prophets say something, well, they're pretty much equal, right? So therefore, what happens if Moses said one thing, and then a future prophet said something else? What do we say? God must have changed his mind, right? When he was talking to Moses, he said one thing, and then later he changed his mind. That's what, unfortunately, some people think, right? There's a little bit of an issue with that, because if God could change his mind, it means he doesn't know what the future is, and if he doesn't know what the future is, then I think we're dealing with the wrong guy. We're not dealing with the wrong God. Sorry to tell you that. Anyways.
But we're not.
What's that?
But
we're not dealing with the wrong God. So God does know the future. So therefore, there's got to be some basis of understanding who's right and who's wrong. Okay? Now, in Judaism, we fix this in a very simple way. How did we fix this problem? First of all, we didn't fix the problem. God fixed the problem for us. He basically told us that there's only one prophet that the Jewish people believe in. That's it. You say, what are you talking about? There's a whole set of the Tanakh and all these sorts of prophets. No. There's only one prophet in the world that the Jewish believe, ever in history, that the Jewish people believe in. Huh? Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, Bechir Ha'uma. You know that song?
I think you have any Spartan here, Rabbi.
We don't have any Spartan here. What are you talking about?
He
is a Spartan over here.
You're not really Spartan.
yeah. You guys are weird.
Yeah, you guys are weird. This is Spartan out of normal way. Anyways, good. By the way, I want to say anybody that online, I don't see anybody watching us right now, but if somebody watches us in the future, you can definitely comment. You should definitely share this feed, this lesson. You should share it, and you should, if you're on YouTube, you should subscribe so that you can get all the videos in the future. Right? What's that? What do you say, David?
Smash that bell button.
How's the shakshuka?
Delicious.
Huh?
Not bad.
Not bad. It leaves you with your mouth burning. I tried some today. Anyways, so back to what we were saying is the Jewish people only believe in one prophet, and that is Moses. Moses is the only prophet ever that we trust is a prophet, and we follow Moses and no one else, period. Okay? Now, Moses gave us the Torah, and there were prophets that we accepted after Moses, but not because we accepted the prophet from their own evidence that they're a prophet, only because they fit the category of prophecy under the rules of Moses. So because Moses gave us rules of what is a prophet and what isn't a prophet, those who fit into the category of prophecy from Moses, they are considered prophets, not because we believe that they're a prophet, is that because we believe Moshe that told us that if they fit these categories, they are a prophet. And this is actually one of the reasons why the Jewish nation did not accept many people that others considered a prophet. Why did the other people consider it a prophet? They said, listen, you're dynamic. You may have done some magic. You showed us that you knew the future. You showed us that you could do miracles, and therefore we'll believe you to be a prophet. That's other nations. But the Jewish people, we never believed anybody except for Moses. And therefore, if according to Moses' rules they were not a prophet, we did not accept them as a prophet. And the reason why I'm saying that this is a very important thing to realize in general is because everything in Judaism is based on the word of Moses. No one has the right to say, I have an authority over telling you what to do. Okay? Now, so since the time of Moses, which was over 3,000 years ago, till today, no rabbi had the right to enforce his authority on the nation of Israel. Right? Even if they were a prophet, they did not have the right to enforce their authority.
Was Shaddai to be a prophet?
What's that?
Was Shaddai to be a prophet?
Absolutely not. Why would he be a prophet? First of all, I'm not sure if I think he did claim to be a prophet. One of the biggest problems with Shabtai Tzvi is that he broke the rules of Moses. And Moshe tells us that if they break the rules of Moses, there can't be a prophet. Right? That itself is enough to mean they're not a prophet. Now, does that mean they don't have spiritual powers? They could have spiritual powers, because who's to say that spiritual powers are limited to people that are prophets? Okay, there's Judaism, we speak about black magic, about other various spiritual powers that are from evil spiritual powers. They're still spiritual, but they're evil, right? And therefore, if somebody breaks the rules of Moses and claims that they're a prophet, they're actually getting their energy and their power and the miracles that are coming from them, they're actually coming from the evil side. And so if you see a person who seems to have spiritual powers, who may even feel spiritual, they could be an evil person. They could be representing Satan himself in this world. Yeah. Yeah. Right? So just because somebody has supernatural powers does not make them a prophet, and it does not make them a good person. They can be a really evil person. By the way, I see there's a few people watching. Thank you for joining us. I do want to remind you that if you make a comment during the live session, I get to see it right here on the computer, and I may even answer your question if it's a good question. If it's not a good question, I might just ignore you. I apologize in advance if I ignore you, but if you put up a good question, we will answer it. I will try to answer it.
Where do you see the comments?
Well, you look at my computer, you want to know where I see comments? There's no comments there. No one commented. That's why you don't see it.
And if they bless
somebody
us, they'll
can-
be blessed. And if
Huh?
they curse us, they bless us, they'll be blessed. And if they curse us, they'll be
So
cursed.
David Collins says that if you bless us, then you'll be blessed, and if you're going to curse us, you'll be cursed. There is a quote like that in the Torah, but I'm not sure.
Be warned.
Yeah, that's us as the whole nation of Israel. And a curse is not necessarily a bad word. It's not necessarily a curse, right? Anyways, okay, so we have Shalom Torres, Toran. Shalom Toran says hi. Hi back. Thanks for joining us here in the holy city of Tzfat, where we're learning Gemara. Okay, anyways, Talmud, Gemara, whatever it is. Okay, thank you for putting up the first comment. If anybody else wants to comment, please feel free. I might mention your name, I might not mention your name. It's up to you. If you write in the comment, please don't mention my name.
We could see their name if we're on the live.
No, you can't see their name
I
because
could log in on my
Oh, you can log in and then see their name. Okay. All right. Anyways, whatever it is. Let's continue. The point is that the Jewish people only believe in one prophet, and that's Moses. And all the other prophets that we believed since Moses was only because they fit into the category of a prophet from the rules of Moses. Now, that being said, the Jewish people had this issue. Okay? If no one had the right to raise their hand and say, I'm the boss, then who's the boss? The boss is the person who can best make an argument that they're following Moses' Torah. And by the way, not them as an individual, but let's just say they want to say this is what God wants. They have to prove it in the best possible way that no one else could argue. They can say, listen, we have this proof and that's that. Now, this actually led to the first ever true, how should I say it? Not dispute, but the millennia long discussion in a very, very logical, rational, scientific way. I said in the past, I'll say it again, especially for our new viewers over here. All two of them for now. Maybe we'll get some more in the future. But it is, it's very important to understand. I forgot what I was going to say. What was I going to say?
I don't know, but it was important.
Never seen this before.
The millennium. Oh, somebody once asked me. Do I think that the scientific method is? Do I think that the Talmud is based on the scientific method? And I said, I'm sorry to break it to you, but I think the scientific method is based on the Talmud. Okay, and as a matter of fact, the people that came up with the scientific method very often studied the Talmud. Many of them did. So, again, Moses gave us this book, and he says, listen, this is God's words. There isn't going to be any other God's words, okay? And even if there was a prophet, the prophets did not have the right to change God's words. Very often, if you look at the prophets, we're only coming to yell at the Jews for not following God's words, right? You look at Isaiah, he says, why aren't you doing A, B, C, D, and E, right? He's asking, why aren't you following the Torah? Now, what is the Torah? How do you define what God wants through the Torah? The answer is through the scientific method of having millions of people discussing back and forth and trying to figure out what exactly does the Torah mean. And each one making their argument one way or the other. I don't know what happened. What's all this fluffy stuff? Like, I don't know, something.
There's like fireworks.
There's like fireworks in the background. I don't know what that does. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. I have no idea.
I don't know how that's.
All right, forget it. Anyways,
how that's happening.
I don't even know how it's happening. You know, we're new with this technology. I'm sorry for those of you listening to me. We're trying our best to bring the Torah from the holy city of Tzfat to the rest of the world. It's fine. Leave it. Anyways, that being said is that over time, the Jewish people were arguing on how to properly interpret the books of Moses, and this is actually what developed the scientific method, because as they were going throughout history, they constantly needed to argue on who has a better point, and they've come up with various methods in order to ensure who is rationally more sound than the other. Yeah? And that's actually, if you ask me, that's actually how the scientific method was developed, because when they were learning the Gemara, that's the way it needed to be. Okay? They need to figure out what is the books of Moses talking about. Yeah, what?
To make an argument.
Yeah. Exactly, but even making an argument of proving it over time, more and more methods and arguments were developed, right? So one rabbi argued one thing, and then some rabbi said, hey, hold on a second, I have another type of argument, another style of argument. And throughout history, when there was with millions of people trying to prove their point with a rational, logical argument, they've actually developed modes of argument. Okay? And those modes of argument is actually today the basis of human logic. Right? If you look at other societies, other cultures, they actually were very different, because in those cultures, how do you enforce your way? If you have one, you think that one way is the way to go, and the other person disagrees, what do?
Kill him.
You kill him.
Sharpen a stick.
Huh?
Bash the other person.
Punch him in the nose. Right? So who was the ultimate authority?
Whoever was stronger.
Whoever was stronger. So everybody everybody was constantly working on being stronger and bigger and more powerful politically, right? People weren't trying to figure out how to think. Who was trying to figure out how to think? The Jews. And now they want to know why the Jews are so smart, because we invented it. we developed it. We developed rational thinking, right? And no other culture needed to, because in other cultures you didn't need to. If you wanted to get your way, you didn't have to think rationally. You just had to either be stronger or have better weapons. So what were they trying to do? They were trying to figure out how to make better weapons. They were trying to figure out how to be stronger, how to collect political might, how to gain political strength. That's all they tried to do, ever. Right? Whereas the Jews, for thousands of years, were trying to figure out how to make a better argument. And that's how human logic developed. Right? If you trace human logic, human intelligence, you will see that it comes from the Jewish people outwards. Right? Because, as I said, we were the only ones that really needed it, because everyone else was just trying to fight and kill each other, and that was their way of proving or enforcing their will on the other, was by fighting. Yeah, they might have had a little bit of intelligence, because you need to understand how to fight and things like that, but the depth of the intelligence was relatively limited. Yeah? Good. Anyways, so that's what the Talmud is we're trying to decipher and to logically, logically analyze how to take the books of Moses and turn them into practical, followable laws. All right?
So the Tanaim would argue, would they just be having all this ready as like prerequisite, like everything I'm reading on the Gemara? Like if
again, the Tanaic era did not really write their arguments a lot. There's a few times that they did write their arguments, and therefore we're not necessarily sure what type of arguments they are. The first time that the actual arguments were written down was in the Talmud and the Gemara, and that's why many people look at the Gemara as the foundation of their logic. All right?
So that's what I'm saying. Let's say one Tana says A, one Tana says B. Would the Tana A have all this information already in his head for why he said A? Tana B already had all this information for why he said B?
Well, he definitely had arguments. Why he wasn't just randomly, right? The sages were not randomly just throwing out ideas.
Right.
They made a calculation on their own, and very often they argued with the other person what those calculations were.
So I'm saying, so why wasn't the Tana, why wasn't their arguments written up?
Huh?
So why didn't they write down their own arguments? Seems like
Because they didn't feel it was important. They didn't feel, again, in the Tanaic period, they felt that the final rules were important, so that's what they wrote. They didn't feel that the actual arguments were important, so they didn't write it, right? In the Talmudic era, they actually felt it was important to write the logic. Why? Because they wanted to teach the future generations really how to think, okay? Because even though the Tanaic period didn't write the logic, but there was logic, there was arguments going back and forth, right? And there were a lot of modes of arguing, there was a lot of modes of thinking that were passed down from generation to generation through these debates, right? The Talmudic era felt that, listen, if we don't write down these arguments and these general ways of thinking, then it may disappear, right? Good. Let's continue. Ready to go? Yalla. So we're starting a new Gemara. You all got your papers over here, which we will, Bezrat Hashem, be using after the class to study it inside. Now, for any of you watching, we are on page 42a of Masechet Shabbos. All right? Now, as we know, there is a prohibition of cooking on Shabbos. You're not allowed to cook on Shabbos. Okay? Yeah? You ready? Good. You're not allowed to cook on Shabbos. We spoke last week about what happens if you don't want to cook something, you just want to warm it up to be somewhat lukewarm. Right? Yeah? Good. So you don't want something to be hot, you want to be lukewarm. We're talking specifically about water. What happens if you want to take water and take it from being, it's freezing right now. What's cold water? Say it's 35 degrees Fahrenheit. That's pretty cold. Okay? And you're like, listen, it's too cold for me. I want to raise the temperature from 35 degrees Fahrenheit to 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Right? Is that permitted on Shabbos? Yes or no, Dan?
depends.
That's that.
Always the answer.
Yeah, depends. What does it depend on? So last week we discussed it depends on how exactly you did it, right? How did you do it? Huh? How did you warm it up, right? If you're going to warm it up in certain ways, we're going to say, no, that's a problem. And in other ways, we're saying it's not going to be a problem. So our Gemara this week is going to continue on that same discussion. We're going to be discussing you want to take cold water and mix it with hot water in order that it should be, you want to change the temperature of it. Okay, that's what we're going to be discussing. Once again, page 42a. We have first a quote from the Mishnah, Avol Noisin v'chulu. The Mishnah that we had prior actually said you're allowed to put, you're allowed to put water in, you're allowed to put cold water into hot water or into a hot vessel, depending on who you ask, but you're allowed to put cold into hot in order to warm it up, but not to heat it up, which means you can make it lukewarm, but you cannot make it boil, not boil, but you cannot make it hot. We've said in the past, what does that mean? Huh? Yad Saledis boy. Yad Saledis boy is approximately 115 degrees. Once you hit that 115 degrees, if you take water from below 115 degrees and you bring it to higher than 115 degrees, that is breaking Shabbat. I want to remind all our viewers, now we actually have a few, Baruch Hashem, thanks for coming. If you make a comment while we're in the middle of the live session and you ask a question, we might actually be able to answer it live because I can see on my computer, I could see in my computer every time somebody comments. So if you comment and it's a question that I feel is relevant to the class, I will definitely answer it. Please use my offer if you want to ask a question on the topic that we're on. What?
Where do you see the viewers?
It's I don't worry about my thing. I see what's going on. Good. Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught as follows. You're allowed to put hot water into cold water, right? But you're not allowed to put cold water into hot water. Divrei Beis Shammai, this is Beis Shammai's opinion. Okay, now what would be the difference if I'm putting cold water into hot water, if I'm putting hot water into cold water?
Hot water's over Yatzaledis.
Huh?
Hot water would be over Yatzaledis.
Yeah, but what's the difference if I put it from the hot to the cold or the cold to the hot? Why does it make a difference?
It's not cooking.
Huh?
It's not cooking.
What's not cooking?
If you put cold to hot, then really you're cooling down the hot water.
Right, and if you put hot into cold,
You're heating up the cold water.
yeah, but it says the exact opposite. It says you could put cold in, you could put hot into cold, but you can't put cold into hot. Yeah. What's that? No, that's what it says. That's what it says.
Because you're turning then the cold water into lukewarm.
Huh?
You're turning the cold water into lukewarm
Instead of the hot to lukewarm.
instead of the hot into cold.
So there is a rule that you're going to learn maybe if you go to smicha. And who's going to smicha? You're going to smicha? You don't want to go to smicha? In smicha, we're going to learn this rule. It's called tato govar. Tato govar means the bottom rules. If you have something that's on top and something that's on bottom and there's two temperatures, the bottom is going to control which one is going to force its way on the other. Meaning the bottom is going to force its way on the other. Yeah, the bottom is going to force its way on the other more than the other way around. And by the way, just so you should know, when I'm speaking in smicha, I very often say this. If you think about it, cold goes down, hot goes up. So, right? So what happens if you put hot into cold? Technically, the hot stays on the top, and the cold stays on the bottom, so the hot really can't affect the cold. But because the hot's next to the cold is going to cool off the hot, right? But the hot is not going to have so much power to heat up the cold. What happens if it's the exact opposite way? If you have hot on the bottom and you have cold coming in on the top, the cold is actually going to flow all the way through the hot to the bottom. And as it's flowing through the hot is heating it up. Right? And so the bottom rules is a rule that we say very, very often in Talmud. These are the bottom rules. Tato govar. Tato govar means bottom rules. And that's what Beis Shammai says. Therefore, you're allowed to put hot into cold because cold is the ruling factor. And therefore, the hot is not going to become, the cold is not going to become hot because the bottom rules. But the other way is going to be a problem, which means if you're going to have a hot water and you can put cold water in, it's going to heat up the cold water. You cannot do that on Shabbos. Okay? Now, of course, that is the opinion of Beis Shammai. Who likes arguing with Beis Shammai? Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel loves arguing with Beis Shammai. He does it all the time. By the way, Beis Hillel is not a person. We speak of him as a person, but Beis Hillel, by the way, is really an academy of Hillel. Right? Beis Hillel is the house of Hillel. It was really an academy of Hillel. What's that? They were some of the earliest Tanoim. Yeah.
But did Beis Shammai argue Tanaim also?
What's that?
Did they have a Tanaic argument also? Or?
This is a Tanaic argument.
This is a Gemara.
No, it's not. It says Tanu Rabbanan. What does Tanu Rabbanan mean? I actually put that in as a keyword, and then I forgot to explain it to you as a keyword. Tanu Rabbanan means the rabbis taught in a brisa. Tanu Rabbanan is a very important keyword because Tanu Rabbanan is a conversation opener. Okay? Tanu Rabbanan is not challenging somebody. We're not bringing this as proof for or against somebody. Tanu Rabbanan, whenever you see Tanu Rabbanan in the Gemara, it is introducing a new discussion, a new conversation about a quote from the Tanaic period. Okay? So this is definitely a Tanaic quote. Beis Shammai says bottom rules, and Beis Hillel oimrim bein cham l'techatzein bein tzein l'techacham mutter. He says either way is mutter. If you want to put the cold into the hot or the hot into cold, doesn't make a difference. It is 100% permitted. Okay? Then the Gemara says as follows: Bamed dvarim amurim. What is this referring to? And that's also a big fat keyword. What does Bamed dvarim amurim mean?
Wait, can you see that slowly?
Bamed dvarim amurim.
It means that they have a question about what one specific thing we just learned about. They're going to try to dissect one specific word that we talked about here.
Yeah.
No, that's what the keyword means.
Good. So Bamed dvarim amurim is actually what it's basically limiting the previous statement. The previous statement is
It's expensive.
yeah, and we limit it. I actually have somebody here from Dunedin, New Zealand, that just came in. He said hi from Dunedin, New Zealand. I haven't been in Dunedin now for what?
20 years.
No, not 20 years.
18 years.
About 12 years. I haven't lived there. I actually visited there in 2017, I believe. But it's always nice to hear people all the way in New Zealand. You should know, by the way, New Zealand is the furthest place in the world from Israel that has a population, meaning that has like a
Jewish population?
no population at all. Meaning they're the furthest to go further from Israel, you'd have to go basically to Antarctica. Yeah, if you look on the map, it's like literally as far as you can go away from Israel and still have a population. That is as far as it goes. And Dunedin is actually one of the furthest places. Within New Zealand, Dunedin is one of the furthest places in there. You could go a little further down to a city called Invercargill. And Invercargill would be the furthest, that would literally be the furthest population center from Israel would be Invercargill. Right? How do I know this? When I was in New Zealand, it actually was pretty impressive. I was like, wow, I was looking at the map. I'm like, you couldn't get further from Israel, right? So we literally connecting by speaking with somebody here from Dunedin. We're speaking with pretty much the exact opposite, or the furthest place from Israel than we could. That we could.
What did you say on Shabbos about your Gemara class?
Huh?
When you spoke yesterday on Shabbos, what did you say about your Gemara class? You learned everything but the Gemara.
Yeah, we learn a lot about everything besides the. Yeah. When you come to my class, you're going to learn everything except the Gemara. Every once in a while, we throw in a piece of the Gemara with it as well. All right. Anyways, thank you, Paul, for giving me some good memories from Dunedin. All right, let's continue. Okay, so Beis Hillel says it doesn't make a difference whether you're putting it from the hot to the cold or the cold to the hot. It's okay. But then he says, Bamed dvarim amurim. Bamed dvarim amurim literally means in what is this speaking about, right? Whenever we see in what is this speaking about, we are actually limiting the previous statement. We're limiting the previous statement, meaning that Beis Hillel seems to say it doesn't make a difference ever, you can do whatever you want, right? That's what Beis Hillel says. But then he says, Bamed dvarim amurim, what are we referring to? Because this is only referring to a cup. Ambati, however, in a bathtub, chamin l'techatzeinin, you could put hot into cold, l'techatzeinin l'techatchamin. Yeah, that's it. So basically, it seems, and the Gemara is going to discuss this, it seems that Beis Hillel only allows you to pour hot into cold and cold into hot in a cup, but not in a bathtub. But you're going to see that the Gemara will interpret this a little different in the future. Just hold your horses. Okay? Then we say the most interesting thing, it says, Rabbi Shimon ben Manasseh oiser. Rabbi Shimon ben Manasseh prohibits. Okay, what does he prohibit? It just say he prohibits. What does he prohibit? It doesn't say what he prohibits. What does Rabbi Shimon ben Manasseh prohibit? Huh?
I would assume pouring hot water to cold water in a bathtub, or even pouring cold water to hot water in a bathtub.
So you'd say that, okay, so the last thing we spoke about was pouring hot into cold in a bathtub. Not, you're only allowed to pour hot into cold in a bathtub, so maybe he's talking about a bathtub.
He's saying
Yeah.
that.
It's probably talking about the coast, right? It's probably talking about the cup, because that's what Beis Hillel mutters.
Yeah, but he also mutters in a bathtub to put hot into cold.
So he would say that.
He's allows
Oh,
it.
I see. Yeah.
So he would say, no, in a bathtub, you talk about in a cup, you can do either, but in a bathtub, you can't pour any water in a bathtub.
Right. Okay, so again, the Gemara is going to discuss exactly what Rabbi Shimon actually prohibits, what is included in that prohibition as well.
He's a
All right?
Tana,
Who?
Rabbi Shimon.
Rabbi Shimon is definitely a Tana, because it's part of the quote. A Tana doesn't argue with an Amora doesn't argue with a Tana. So if you see an argument between, if you know one of them's a Tana, you know all of them's a Tana.
No, because it could be that it was Namar saying that no, he doesn't actually say that. His opinion is that you can't do it. You can do it in the cup. You're not allowed
Yeah,
to do it in
but
the
why
bathtub.
would he be arguing with a Tana?
I'm saying he's not arguing.
What do you mean? He says clearly, he's arguing. He says, Rabbi Shimon Manasseh, the is always, the vav always connects to the previous, yeah. Yeah, anyways, my phone is buzzing probably in the microphone's ear, so we're going to move it so that, yeah. I don't know, people on Facebook have to hear my phone buzzing.
So
Yeah.
in this context, when you see the vav, you know that's what follows is still part of the baraisa.
Okay, so again, the word and is, you cannot say and without something prior to it. And is always connecting to the previous thing, right? So the same thing here. The word and, right, vi is a continuation of the past. So he is prohibiting something that was allowed. When he says he prohibited something that the previous person allowed. Yeah.
And the next line, Amar, would be a
we finished the quote, we finished the Tanea quote, and now we're going to go to the analysis of the Amoraic era, right? Amar Rav Nachman says as follows: Harlocha Rabbi Shimon ben Manasseh. He holds like Rabbi Shimon ben Manasseh, which is the most strict opinion of all of them. That's what he holds. Yeah, good. What?
Wait, so Rabbi Shimon. Wait, his opinion is usher for everything. You're not allowed to do what Rabbi Shammai, even what Rabbi Shammai says you're not allowed to do?
Who?
I'm saying Rabbi Shimon.
Again, we don't know what Rabbi Shimon says. We just know that he prohibited something that the other people allowed.
Wait,
right?
So you just said it's the strictest opinion, though.
It is the strictest opinion, or it seems to be the strictest opinion, but we're not sure who he's talking about. By the way, it might not be the strictest opinion. It might be in between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. You're right, 100%. We don't know. All that we know right now is that he prohibits something that was allowed before. And then we know that Rav Nachman says that Allah is according to him. Right?
But so is that in Rashi?
Huh?
Is that in Rashi?
We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay? Now let's continue a little bit in the Gemara. Savar Rav Yosef Lemeimar. Rav Yosef, I put Savar as a keyword as well, because Savar, no, I didn't put Savar as a keyword. I thought I did. Savar really should be a keyword. Savar means that it's kind of like he had the opinion, or he wanted to say that. He wanted to say the following, but it was knocked out immediately when he said it, right? So Savar Rav Yosef Lemeimar, Rav Yosef would like to have said, right, Seifel Hareu Kambati, that a Seifel is like an Ambati. Now what is a Seifel? No idea, right? I wouldn't either have an idea. Okay? If you look, a seifel is basically, in the olden days, there was two types of things that people would bathe in. They had like a bathtub that was kind of like built into the ground, that was like a little bit of like a pool, or what do they call it, jacuzzi, like the old type of jacuzzis that what mom built in. Today, usually a jacuzzi is also like a bathtub. But they also had, so they had things that were built into the ground, and then they had things that were, They had things that were built into the ground, and that was called an ambati, right? An ambati was built into the ground. A seifel was kind of like a big bowl that people used to bathe in was a seifel, right? Now, remember, the reason why an ambati is so strict is because there's a lot of water. If there's a lot of hot water, then what's the chance of the little cold water cooling off a lot of hot water? You have so much versus so little. But the question is a seifel, which is it's a vessel that's overground and it's a little smaller. Maybe that does have enough. Maybe that is small enough that the other water will.
So would it be the opposite?
Huh?
If it's harder, if the chances of you not actually making the water colder, heating up the water, wouldn't that make it less strict?
Correct. So the question is a seifel as strict as an ambati or not? So from what the Gemara is saying, it would seem to indicate that Rabbi Shimon is only prohibiting whatever was allowed in an ambati, right? Meaning that an ambati is prohibited, according to Beis Hillel, an ambati, you will be allowed to put hot into cold, but not cold into hot, right? And seemingly he prohibits completely. You don't mess with an ambati, zel. The only question is, what about a seifel? Is a seifel the same rule as an ambati or not?
No, so we've said in the Mishnah, Beis Hillel says they're both permitted.
Huh?
Beis Hillel says they're both permitted.
Where does he say both are permitted? He said only a cup. A cup is not a seifel. A seifel is a massive container, a cup is a little container. Yeah?
What does hari mean? Hare?
Hare is like, it is, or behold, it is. In this case, it is. Hare hu kambati, it is like an ambati. So he wanted to say that a seifel and an ambati have the same rule. Amalei Abaye, who loves arguing, those of you who were here in the last lesson, we spoke about Abaye. I'm trying to teach everybody some of the characters of the Gemara. One of them is Abaye. It's a cool name, and he's actually buried right next to us here in Tzfat, up the hill. We have the grave of Abaye and Rava, right? So Abaye basically said to Rav Yosef, Tani Rabbi Chia taught, and when it says Rabbi Chia taught, you know what it means? It means he taught in a brisa. Okay? He taught in a brisa. A brisa is a Tanaic quote. Even though Rabbi Chia is not necessarily a Tana. And I say not necessarily a Tana because Rabbi Chia actually was one of the earliest Amoraim, and therefore he, in some cases, can be considered one of the latest Tanoim.
Like Rabbi Shmuel?
He was even a little before Rav and Shmuel. I believe. Again, don't hold me with that. I'm not very good at history stuff.
It says That's how you know.
Tani Rabbi Chia. It doesn't say Rabbi Chia Omar. If it says Rabbi Chia Omar, it means Rabbi Chia is telling you his personal opinion. If it says Tani Rabbi Chia, it means he taught something that he had from the Tanaic era. So Tani Rabbi Chia seifel eine kambati. It is not like an ambati. So he says, no, it is not the same rule. There's one's built into the ground. It's a bigger pool. If it's above ground, there could be other rules, right? All right, so the question is, should we end here for today, or should we go on further? How are we working on timing? Huh? 15 minutes. Can I know how to? What do you say?
Let's go slow.
What's that?
Let's go slow and try to do Rashi's too.
You want to do Rashi's in class as well? All right.
I don't know in class.
Huh?
I don't know in class. It's up to you.
It's up to me. All right. Anyways, let's go one step further. Okay, so I'm going to start you in a particular stream of thought, and then you'll get further. All right, you'll go on by yourself. Okay. Now, even though Rav Yosef wanted to say that a seifel and an ambati are equal, they're the same thing. He wanted to say that. Then Abaye comes and proves him they're not. Right? But the very fact that Rabbi Yosef wanted to say that they're the same thing, this proves that there's a legitimate argument that there is the same thing. Okay? Reminding you what I said before. When the Gemara quotes somebody by name, these people were masters. These people knew everything. They knew everything that was out there prior to them, and they analyzed it to the core. Right? So if they were going to say something, and then they were just thrown out by, left field, you know what that means? That means that they had a legitimate argument from every other perspective. So it's very interesting how the Gemara is now going to analyze what was Rav Yosef thinking when he wanted to say that they're the same thing, right? So again, we're going to try to challenge the legitimacy of that actual statement, right? So it says, Ulemai, where are we? Ulemai de Salik. I still can't find it. Oh, here, I went for Ulemai de Salik adaita me'kara. And what came up in your mind to begin with? Okay? What came up in your mind to begin with to suggest the Seif al-Reu Kambati that they're the same thing? V'omar Rav Nachman halacha Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya. And Rav Nachman says the halacha is Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya. Elo b'Shabbos rechitza b'chamin leika. From here it seems to prove that there is no such thing of washing yourself on Shabbos in hot water. Are you allowed to wash yourself in hot water on Shabbos?
Only the Teferi hot springs.
Huh?
Only the Teferi hot springs.
So I like the fact that you said only. Yeah.
If it comes from a duty,
Huh?
comes from duty.
Becomes to the duty. Duty free.
It's warmed by the sun.
Huh? So you're all saying good answers. However, none of them is 100% correct. Are you allowed to bathe on Shabbos with water? By the way, anybody watching could also put in the comments if you think you know the answer. Depends. Depends. Huh?
You can 95% chance of being right if you answer it depends.
So you're allowed to wash parts of your body on Shabbos, but not your entire body. If you remember, we had a couple of weeks ago, we had a whole discussion about that. You can some people say you can wash one limb at a time. Some people say you can only wash your hands, your face, and your feet. But we clearly see a precedence of washing yourself with what's it called?
Even in cold water, still not the whole body.
What's that?
Is that what we said?
No, I'm asking.
No, this is in regards to hot water.
In regards to hot water.
Yeah, cold is fine.
What about opening from?
So you could, again, you're not allowed to bathe with hot water on Shabbos, especially hot water that was heated by fire, etc. However, even if it was heated from before Shabbos. However, you could wash your hands, feet, and face. Now, if a seifel is like an ambati, you pretty much ruin that, because we're not going to, it doesn't make sense that we're going to start making a cup. A cup is just for drinking. It's not enough to wash your hands in. What are you washing your hands in? A bucket. Yeah, but a basin is already a seifel. And if you're going to tell me that a seifel is like an ambati, and the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon, which prohibits you from mixing hot and cold, how on earth are you going to wash your hands on Shabbos? If you're going to take it from the hot urn, you're going to burn your hands. You're going to get a second-degree burn. Right? That's obviously, you're not going to take from the fire and put it on your hands. You obviously have to mix it in order to ensure that that it's warm enough that it won't burn you. Yeah? We had a comment there from Africa, but it's on a different page. I don't know if you had another page before. You see, this one. How come I didn't see that on my thing? We have somebody from Uganda, Africa.
The YTD group class.
YTD group class. Can I know how to? All the way from Africa. Uganda. Wow. Sheesh, this class reaches so many places.
Do you know that way?
All right, remember, you could ask questions or comment, and if it is something that we feel is a legitimate question,
We
we'll
literally
deal
had
with it.
last week's Gemara where they said the luck was like this, they had an argument, they brought one line,
Yeah.
and then that was the end of the discussion.
That what? No, we basically decided that you could definitely wash your hands, feet, and face. The only question is if you could wash one limb at a time. Huh? Anyways, the Gemara is basically assuming that if you could wash your hands, feet, and face, you would have to have some method of mixing the hot and the cold in order to get it to a temperature that works. Okay, you ever go into a shower and you turn it on and for some reason the temperature gauge doesn't work and it's blowing at you boiling hot water, you're like, can't handle this, man.
So, in last week's Gemara.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but that is only a question of how are you going to keep hot water. That has nothing to do with bathing. That is speaking about how are you allowed to maintain hot water on Shabbos.
Right, no, but look, that's my point.
Yeah.
It said that you can't.
That what?
What?
That what does it say?
No, kivesei mechama. A copper here's the one that's going to warm it up.
Again.
And that was it. That was the end of the discussion.
No, it was but that was a different discussion. That was a discussion. How can we have water that was heated on Friday that we're allowing to stay into Shabbos?
No, but there's an argument there.
What do you mean there's an argument? What are we talking about? Again, that is referring to what type of utensils you're allowed to use.
Right.
Let's take, for example, the muliyar. We had a muliyar. Everybody agrees that you could use the muliyar.
Right.
We're only talking about the Beit Dudi or the Beit Kiri. Right?
But clearly they had an argument there, though.
Huh? They had an arguing, yeah, but their argument was completely irrelevant to our Gemara.
Without, absent.
Their argument was their argument was in what ways are you allowed to keep hot water from Friday to Shabbos?
Well, that's the opposite.
That had nothing to do with now. Now we're discussing you have hot water. Who cares? You use something you're allowed to. Let's say you use a muliyar. Okay, you use a muliyar. Fine. Whatever you use, now you have boiling hot water. You're not going to dip your hands in boiling hot water and get second-degree burns. Okay, so obviously you need to have a method to mix it. And what would be the method to mix it? In a bucket. And if you're going to tell me a bucket is like an antichi, and the halach is like Rabbi Shimon that doesn't allow you ever to mix it with the antichi, you're pretty much canceling all washing your hands on Shabbos with warm water. And that doesn't make sense because we clearly determined that you could wash your hands with hot water. Therefore, the question really is on Rav Yosef.
They have them all the way on the left.
Therefore, the question is on Rav Yosef, what were you thinking when you were trying to say that a sefer is like an abati? Because if you're going to say a sefer is like an abati, then you canceled washing your hands on Shabbos with warm water, which doesn't make sense. As I told you before, if you have a shower that only works on hot or only works on cold, it's flippin' annoying. Right? I was in Crown Heights, by the way. I went to the mikveh in Crown Heights, and they have like 10 showers, okay? And I see that there's like 3 people in 2 showers right next to each other, and then there's this line of like 10 showers and no one's there. I'm like, dude, separate a little bit. Like why are you so close? 2 showers right next to you. There's 10 showers over here. Go use the other one. Give it space out a bit, man.
Then you work that
right?
way.
Huh?
Then you work that way.
And then I said, okay, so you know what? I'll maybe be a living example. I'll go to the furthest shower. I go to the furthest shower. This shower only worked on hot. You turned it on, 3 seconds later it was boiling hot. They're like, you couldn't do anything, So before you knew it, I became one of those guys using those showers right next to me. Right? I think anybody that was suspicious would have tried the other showers.
Then the new guy comes in.
The new guy does the same thing. He goes to the far showers like, what's these guys trying to shower right next to each other? No, I don't know. For some reason, only like 2 showers actually worked properly. The other ones. The point is, if you want to comfortably shower, or you want to comfortably wash yourself, you have to have a way to mix to ensure that the temperature is correct, right? And if Rabbi Yosef would suggest that a bucket and a bathtub is the same rule, then by definition he would be canceling your ability to practically wash your hands in warm water, which we already determined that you could do, which seems to be it seems to not to make sense. So what are we doing here? We are actually throwing out the very ability to the very reasoning that Rabbi Yosef wanted to make this argument. We're saying no, not a good argument, right?
What is Leica?
Leica is not, or it's not yet. Huh?
Oh.
That's
Yes.
supposed to be asked.
Anyways, before we go to Chavrusas, I want to remind you guys something very important. Okay, you're listening? You're listening? Right? How come no people coming on Facebook? What's going on with you? Why are you not watching us? Let's make a funny face. Maybe they'll come watch. All right, we have one person, Baruch Hashem, watching. It's probably the same person that stayed with us for a while. I don't know who it is even because I can't see that part. But thank you for remaining with the shir. Again, you can ask questions. By the way, even if you are watching this after the shir, if you put in a comment and you ask a question, I will attempt to answer it to the best of my ability.
If it's worthy of it, yes.
If it's worthy of being answered, yes. No, we had some good questions over the time. Anyways, yeah, what are we gonna go do? Oh, I want to remind you guys, okay, that we give out these papers. And by the way, anybody online, if you want, you can actually send me a request and I will send this to you in PDF and you can print these out. These papers are the most important, okay? This program is called the Talmudic Literacy Program. It's trying to teach you and give you the ability that you should be able to learn on your own. And in order to be able to learn on your own, what do you got to do, Dan? You got to practice reading it on your own without my help. Okay, if I'm going to just give you the information, then so you'll get the information, but you're not going to get the skills to learn. I'll give you an example. Anybody out there ever tried to play guitar? Yeah, you ever try to play guitar? What happens if I send you right now to 3,000 lessons from the best guitarist? What I mean by lessons is he's going to give you a lecture on how to play guitar. You think you're going to learn how to play guitar that way? No! You can't. You have to practice it. So if you really want to learn how to learn Gemara and to understand it properly, you have to use these papers to read it inside, to translate the words literally, and to make use of this and then read it in the Gemara like I do at the end of every week. We test you guys on the Gemara. Okay? And by the way, any of you online, if you want to get tested, I'll test you too. I'll send you these papers, I'll test you. You can try to learn how to learn Gemara from the original language. But that's what we're doing here. Please do me a favor. I get very annoyed when I see a guy stay here for 3 weeks and he's like, yeah, Rabbi, I can tell you everything we learned. Yeah, shkoyach, but you're not knowing how to learn it inside, man. This is it, man. Once you know how to learn the Gemara inside, you're going to be brilliant. Okay? Until then, you're going to be an idiot that needs to listen to me all the time. Okay? So you want to listen to me all the time? Or you want to be able to learn the Gemara on your own? Make up your mind. Both. Good. I like that answer. It's a good answer. Thank you. You want to do both. But put it this way. If you want to listen to me all the time, then you definitely got to practice, because I'm not going to want to explain to you every detail of the Gemara for the rest of your life. Okay? Maybe if you once you learn how to learn Gemara, you develop those skills, I'll take you to a deeper understanding of Gemara. Right? That I'm happy to do. And then you could keep on hearing. If you're constantly developing, then I'll be motivated to keep on helping you develop. But if you're just going to sit there and say, Rabbi, just hand me all the information and I'm too lazy to actually do the work, forget about it, as they say in Brooklyn. Can move on v'gam poshut. All right? And with that, we're going to send you to Chavrusas, and we're going to thank all the people online for joining us. Wait, don't shut it yet. They might have questions. If you are on the line, you have about 20 seconds, and if you type a question or a comment, right now it can be any question. It doesn't have to be on the Talmud. Any question you want. If it's somewhat of a question that I feel I can answer, I will attempt to answer it. You have right now approximately 10 seconds before we shut it down. Unless I see a comment, then I will do it. All right, we're going to want to do a comment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Anyone's last chance? 9. Oh.